everyone, and welcome to this edition of Space in Africa webinar series titled Generative AI for Space Applications and Technologies. I'm Ayolu Aditola, the Programs and Communications Associate at Space in Africa, and I'm honored to host this edition of the webinar. The global generative AI market is poised to reach approximately $1.3 billion by 2023 and is expected to expand at a CAGR of 35.6% through 2027, affecting multiple sectors, including the global space industry. AI advancements in manufacturing, remote sensing, spacecraft control and coordination are helping to alleviate constraints and driving productivity and growth in the satellite industry, and Africa cannot be left out. Our discussion today will equip you with the necessary tools and knowledge and partnerships to capitalize on generative AI, ultimately advancing Africa's space technology capabilities. So this session will be a gateway for Africa to participate and potentially lead generative AI applications within the global space scene. We'll be giving an introductory overview of generative AI, its principles, underlying models, and we'll discuss some AWS services and frameworks that will facilitate the development of generative AI technologies and applications. We'll also be sharing specific mission use cases where generative AI has proven to be very, very valuable. Leading the presentation today is Joy Fasnat. She's the Principal Solutions Architect at AWS Aerospace and Satellite. Joy will be making a short presentation touching on all the key points for this workshop, and then we'll take some questions from the audience. As we progress through our discussion, please do not hesitate to leave your questions in the Q&A box, and then we'll treat them during the Q&A segment. Welcome to today's edition, and we hope you have a good time. Joy, please take the floor.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. So honored to be here, and I really appreciate this chance to come and share what AWS has been hearing and discussing with our space customers around generative AI in space. It's a very exciting time, and just a really great opportunity right now to lean into these important technologies. So appreciate the introduction. Again, my name is Joy Fasnat, and I am a Principal Solutions Architect with AWS, Amazon Web Services. That's the cloud computing division of Amazon. I've been with AWS for 7 years now as a solutions architect, sharing a lot of different journeys with customers all over the world, and specifically for about the last 2.5 years with our global space customers. So prior to that, I was a principal software engineer for over a dozen years with a company based in America called Ball Aerospace, who is now a part of BAE, interpreting and creating software for satellite data analysis. So again, I'm very, very honored to be here and really appreciate this chance to talk to you. So today I'm going to dive into the business impact of generative AI and how we feel at AWS we think it's going to reshape the economy over the next few years, and specifically we'll talk about the space economy with us. So as we mentioned, analysts estimate that generative AI technology will increase the global GDP by 7% over the next 2 years. And that Gen AI market is going to reach at least $100 billion by the year 2030. So that's why, from what we've been hearing from our customers on the Amazon Web Services side, 80% of current AI research is focused on generative AI. And we hear from all of our customers in all of the verticals, not just space, that they want to go fast, they want to leverage their data to differentiate their business. So generative AI has taken the world by storm over the last 2 years. I'm sure you've been hearing all about it in the news. We've been able to, through consumer-facing applications like ChatGPT, we've all been able to experience how powerful the latest machine learning models have become. And while a lot of attention has been given to how consumers are using generative AI, we at AWS think there's an even bigger opportunity in how businesses and organizations will use it to transform the experiences for their customers and their employees. So, the true power of generative AI goes beyond a search engine or a chatbot. We believe it's going to transform every aspect of how companies and organizations operate. And the potential of generative AI is incredibly exciting, with Goldman Sachs forecasting a $7 trillion increase in global GDP and a lift to global productivity growth by 1.5 percentage points over a 10-year period. But before we get into some of the really interesting things that we've been hearing from our space customers around use cases and things that they want to do with generative AI, let's go into just a brief background of what is Gen AI and a little bit about the technology itself. So, with so much potential, why is this technology, which has been really coming along for decades, why is it seeing so much interest now? So, this technology has reached its tipping point. We've had a convergence of technological progress and the value of what that technological progress means and can accomplish. With the massive proliferation of data, the available of highly scalable compute capacity, and the advancement of machine learning technologies over time, generative AI is finally taking shape. And in particular, these machine learning innovations have made the capabilities of generative AI possible just within the last few years. So it's important to note that at its core, generative AI is leveraging the latest advances in machine learning. These are the latest evolutions in technology that have been evolving for decades. And the focus, of course, of generative AI, what really powers them are these things called foundation models. What makes foundation models special is that they can perform so many more tasks because they contain such a large number of parameters that make them capable of learning complex concepts. And through their pre training exposure to internet scale data in all of its various forms and myriads of patterns, foundation models, or FMs for short, I'll be referring to them as FMs a lot along the way here during the webinar. Those foundation models learn to apply their knowledge within a wide range of contexts. While the capabilities and the resulting possibilities of a pre trained foundation model are amazing, customers get really excited because these generally capable models can also be customized to perform domain specific functions that are differentiating to their businesses, using only a small fraction of the data and the compute that was required to train that model from scratch. And now let's have a look at the differences from a model point of view. Traditional machine learning models used architectures that required months of costly and manual data preparation, data labeling, and model training, all to produce a model for just one specific task. But the large models, the foundation models that power generative AI applications, are driven by a transformer based neural net architecture that cuts down on this development process significantly. This architecture enables models to be pre-trained on massive amounts of unlabeled data, that's key, so that they can be used for a wide variety of generalized tasks. And they can be easily adapted for particular domains or industries with relatively small amounts of labeled data in a customization process known as fine-tuning. So let's talk briefly about three buckets of areas in which we see generative AI really creating value for our customers and the organizations that we serve on the AWS side. So we see it enhancing customers' experiences through things like chatbots, virtual assistants, conversational analytics, and personalization. We also see Gen AI boosting employee productivity and creativity through things like content creation, code generation, data to insights. And we also see it optimizing business processes through process optimization and document processing, as well as automation and the ability to have more robust cybersecurity. All right, so with that, that's a general background and overview of how we got here with generative AI, what foundation models really are, and the differences that have happened between these large foundation models and prior machine learning models, and a general overview of some of these things that, in general, generative AI really can do to boost all of the organizations and customers. But now let's talk about space. That's, again, that's why we're all here. That's what we're all interested in. So let's talk about how generative AI is expected to accelerate the growth in the space industry. So it is forecast to reach $1 trillion by 2040. And next, I'm going to go into some key use cases that we at AWS on the Aerospace and Satellite team are hearing from our customers that we know are going to drive growth of that space economy. The first area we really see is this area of geospatial and remote sensing. This is just a huge area. Geospatial data is large and growing all of the time with the proliferation of low Earth orbit satellites that are imaging and providing tons of Earth observation data down to the Earth all of the time for so many important use cases. These are the things that we really see generative AI getting involved in this geospatial and remote sensing world. So in this first, the enhancement of satellite imagery, foundation models train on more data than models in the past, and they do so in an unlabeled manner. So foundation models that have been trained on years of satellite imagery and integrating other data sources could potentially detect undiscovered patterns over larger scale time spans and generate predictive scenarios based on that, with applications that are so important to the Earth, such as meteorological forecasting, environmental and urban planning. Second, where we see is improved object identification using synthetic generated data. So using FMs, we can generate millions of unique labeled images easily and at low cost to supplement smaller labeled data sets and use those large combined data sets to train computer vision models. This results in higher testable accuracy for the computer vision models. Third, delivering better query results using natural language over satellite imagery sets. It's expensive and time-consuming to annotate satellite imagery data for use in traditional search algorithms or for placement in predefined file structures. We can use a foundation model to index imagery and search using natural language queries. And fourth, the ability to keep image secure by detecting doctored images. FMs can help determine if an image has been doctored using a variety of indicators like inconsistencies in the file layout. So the challenge then, right, for object identification in satellite imagery is that the computer vision models do have a low fidelity, and satellite imagery is large and it's very time consuming to manually search and actually pretty impossible to do it all. So the solution is to use a text to image foundation model, and we can generate simulated satellite images of rare objects much more easily with an outcome of much better and testable model performance. Natural language query on images is a very interesting and exciting use case as well, where you need to be able to basically ask the questions in a way that humans would normally speak. A lot of people are calling this a queryable Earth, right? So you can now use multimodal foundation models where it will have both imagery and the ability to have the large language model to have the language text where people can actually ask natural language queries of those images. And I'm going to show you an example of this on the next page. All right, so these are two satellite images that were captured from a flood here in the United States about 2 years ago in the Yellowstone National Park. So we loaded these two images into a multimodal model where it understands both vision and text. And this is the prompt that we asked of the Claude 3 Sonnet large language model. We asked it, you are a satellite imagery analyst, so we gave the AI a role, and we said, describe these two images and give an opinion on the cause of the differences in the two satellite images. And this is what Claude 3 Sonnet came out with. This is the response. It detected that there had been evidently some sort of a flood in the area, that the water looked different. The waterway looked more turbid and discolored in the bottom image, and then it postulated that based on these observations, there was a significant flood perhaps in this area. So again, just the ability to query the Earth is a very exciting upcoming capability that many people are going to start taking advantage of. And with that, I'd like to share with you a customer use case and a customer success story that that we have had here with one of our AWS aerospace and satellite customers. This customer is named Degas Limited, and Degas is a Japanese agri-fintech startup. So Degas currently operates in Ghana and supports tens of thousands of smallholder farmers with financing, agricultural materials, farm monitoring, guidance, and access to international markets. Degas reaches local farmers through their network of over 130 field agents. So one of the key things that the folks on the ground needed to know about was how to use regenerative agricultural practices. So Degas developed a large language model-based chatbot that was able to take in natural language prompts and analyze regenerative agricultural manuals, along with satellite imagery, weather data, and proprietary ground data that Degas procures. And in this way, those 130 field agents are advising optimal regenerative agricultural practices to these smallholder farmers. And they've been able to influence and suggest RA technologies and practices for over 35,000 farmers in Ghana. All right, so that's what we see in the area of geospatial, Earth observation, remote sensing. Let's talk about another use case, though, where generative AI, we believe, will be very impactful, and that's in this area of design and engineering. So the first capability where we think generative AI will be applicable to the space industry is in this concept of spacecraft design. So hardware designers can provide specifications of a part needed on a spacecraft design, and then evaluate potential designs provided by generative AI tools, which may look like what we've determined experimentally is an optimal design or could take on a wholly new shape, which is a very interesting use case to think about, to ask generative AI, I need to design, a new manifold for this rocket engine. And these are the parameters. If you feed it your scientific manuals, for instance, what are some of the things that it could come up with? Very interesting use case. Another area on the second part here is to identify innovative and optimal testing scenarios for digital twins. So when we define test scenarios, we often have two options. First is to test the scenarios we can think of, right? And has the risk of missing some important considerations. Or we test for a huge number of combinations of scenarios, which could be very prohibitive, costly, and very time consuming. So generative AI tools can help us come up with an array of scenarios that better cover the testing space, but still remain within reasonable time and cost boundaries. And then the third area that we see, and as a former software engineer, this is one that's near and dear to my heart, is to reduce risk and technical debt in software development. So large code bases, as many of us who have done software for a long time know, need constant maintenance, upkeep, and that software code base can hide subtle but impactful bugs, which can take time away from your efforts to develop new features and capabilities. So Amazon has tools to help with code generation and code analysis and code understanding using generative AI technologies. And we'll talk about some of those tools later in the webinar. They save developer time, they reduce the number of inadvertent bugs by generating good solid boilerplate code, as well as providing scanning for vulnerabilities. And another use case here then where we want to just share some success stories that our telecommunications customer BT Group has had. So BT Group is a multinational telecommunication company that has been able to use our Amazon Q Developer, which is our code generation, code large language model tool, to improve productivity of its software engineers. Automating about 12% of the time consuming repetitive tasks for those engineers. So BT Group has made this solution available to 1,200 of its software engineers across the business, and the solution is providing 15 to 20 suggestions of code per active user per day, and those users are accepting the code that is suggested at an acceptance rate of about 37%. And so within the first 4 months of deployment at BT Group, Q Developer generated over 100,000 lines of code for the software developers there. So let's dive in a little bit more into that digital twin testing scenario that I mentioned. So again, the challenge with digital twins is you want to have the simulation and testing of physical components in a simulated world, right? In an artificial world that's purely digital. And you also want to be able to have that digital twin to go back to after manufacture. But again, that sheer number of testing scenarios and failure modes can be very, very difficult and very cost prohibitive. So using a foundation model to generate structured test plans, we found we can generate large numbers of very high quality testing scenarios by adding in constraints. So constraints, again, are a very important part of when you prompt an artificial intelligence engine to give you an output. You usually give it something like a role, like we saw with the satellite imagery analysis, and you also can give it constraints to tell it exactly how to behave. And this is where we've also seen just a tremendous impact on customers who do want to use these digital twins. All right, so we've talked about two different use cases so far. We're going to move on to a third next, which is launch, flight, exploration, and operations. So again, once if you're in the launch and the satellite launching business, this is a tremendously complicated world. So there's so many different ways that we at AWS have been talking to our customers about how these launch, flight, and the operating of flying satellites can be enhanced and can be automated and improved with generative AI technologies. So this first is to increase automated mission planning with optimal flight path generation. So currently, we generate flight paths through human expertise, which can be slow, costly, and labor intensive. Generative AI could define multiple scenarios for us in the future quickly and at low cost, which then could be tested either manually or automatically to find optimal flight paths. The second area is to accelerate operator training with natural language queries against your documents. So when a new or experienced satellite operator has a question, they currently have to sift through multiple large manuals of satellite operations knowledge, right? That's been generated over perhaps decades, and those large manuals could be in separate repositories and with varying degrees of findability of that data. However, a foundation model can be fine-tuned in minutes against digital documents, which gives operators the ability to pose natural language queries and receive answers based on all of your material. And then the third area where we're seeing interest in generative AI technology is in this area of launch and operations is added support missions with enhanced scenario generation. So similar to the digital twin and the generation of scenarios there, when you're actually in flight operations, if an unexpected event was to happen during a mission time is very critical there. And so experts could use a fine-tuned foundation model to help generate and evaluate potential scenarios that could happen in advance of anything actually happening. And that provides a wide array of potential scenarios to evaluate. This could accelerate time to resolution, as well as providing greater confidence that an optimal resolution can be reached. And a customer use case where we have seen success in this area is BMW, the automotive manufacturer and operator. So BMW needed to deliver a very secure mobility solution to motorists around the world using Amazon technologies in this area, using Bedrock, which is a solution I'm going to share with you later. They developed an in-console cloud assistant solution, and they are using generative AI there to boost performance and efficiency to deliver premium driving experiences while keeping that data secure in transit and at rest. And they do this processing 12 billion requests a day for 27 million different vehicles using Amazon Bedrock. So while we're not seeing the use yet in space, we know that it is possible to do this in a very secure and very high scale fashion, as we've seen through BMW, the car car manufacturer and operator. All right, so let's talk a little bit about data. Data is your differentiator. And over the past 25 plus years, using Amazon machine learning and technologies, we have seen just an enormous growth in the ability of your data. So we've worked with a lot of customers, and it's safe to say that everybody acknowledges how powerful generative AI is, and they're all working to build a generative AI vision for their organizations. But what we find is nearly everyone we speak with focuses on the foundation models, but that's just the tip of the proverbial iceberg. So let's dive in a little bit more to what's underneath the surface there, because there's a lot more than meets the eye at first glance for a generative AI application. What really will enable you to derive value for your organization, your company, under a generative AI application is your data. So generative AI applications, at the end of the day, are still just software applications. So you need operational databases underneath to support your users, your customers' experiences for all of the interaction steps outside of invoking that large language model itself. So key here, we've got analytics, data lakes. That's where you accumulate your domain-specific data. These are the tools you use to explore it and to understand how to leverage it in generative AI. Then we have data integration. So you need to batch in your data or stream in your data. You need to set up pipelines to keep up with changing data, to transform it and process it so that that data becomes useful to feed your generative AI application. And finally, you have to consider governance. This is the process that ensures your data quality, privacy, and compliance to privacy laws and securities and access controls of your particular organization or your locale. So while it's tempting to think about the generative AI surface area, it's really the data processes and usage underneath that you need to nail down effectively using a modernized data architecture. And AWS account teams, solutions architects such as myself are this is what we do all day is we help our customers create modern data architectures that are secure and performant. And we've done this for years before generative AI ever sprang on the scene. And the foundations and the engineering principles are the same for how to create that solid modern data architecture foundation that now can feed generative AI. And I'm going to talk next about why this data piece is so important. One more time, I want to share, why is this data so important to you? And it's because your data is your differentiator. So when you think about it, every company has access to the same foundation models, the same FMs. But companies that will be successful in building Gen AI applications with real business value to yourselves, your employees, and your customers and users are those organizations that will do so using their own data. Data is the difference between generic Gen AI applications and those that know your business and your customers deeply. We're seeing very creative generative AI use cases, including intelligent conversational chatbots, generating programming code from text, and summarizing long-form narratives such as books and transcripts. Likewise, we're also seeing a trend of popular application building patterns that customers are using to build Gen AI applications. So here are some of these patterns that I want to share with you today that we're really seeing broadly across all of AWS. And these are the building patterns that we talk to about with our space customers as well on our aerospace and satellite team. These are 3 significant ways that you can make generative AI work with your data to provide strong business value to your use cases. These patterns are techniques for optimizing generative AI outputs with your own data. These are important. You're going to need to decide which one is right for you and your use case. Things like speed, accuracy, cost, and complexity are all factors. You need to consider the business value of each situation and weigh the benefits of each to determine what makes the most sense. So these 3 techniques, retrieval augmented generation or RAG, fine-tuning, and continued pre-training, are commonly ranked by their level of complexity from the easiest to the most complex. So the most cost-effective and easiest place to get started using your data is RAG, or retrieval augmented generation. With RAG, there's no need to retrain any models. External data that you have is used to augment your prompts, and that can come from multiple data sources, including document repositories, databases, and APIs. RAG helps the model adjust its output with data retrieved as needed from these knowledge libraries. The next is fine-tuning. When you fine-tune an existing FM, you're using a smaller sample from your own domain-specific data, basically creating a new model with your prepped data set. And finally, continued pre-training. This is the most complex. Continued pre-training means you pick up where the foundation model provider left off. You train the model on data sets in your enterprise to extend both the generalized and specialized knowledge of the model. So I'm going to touch on Amazon Bedrock here in just a couple of slides. This is one of the key services that AWS provides for generative AI. And what I'm going to share with you is that all 3 of these types of customizations are easily accessible. Bedrock supports all 3 of these capabilities to customize your model responses with your own data. But before I dive too deeply into Bedrock itself, I just want to talk briefly about the total generative AI stack that AWS provides for our customers. So this stack, from the top to the bottom, provides a lot of flexibility in different ways that our customers can leverage generative AI technologies. So at the top, we have applications that leverage these large language models and other foundation models to do things like generate code, create dashboards, do business transactions, and make recommendations. Then in the middle, we have Bedrock. I'm going to dive into Bedrock here with just a few slides and describe what Bedrock does. Provides a lot of different guardrails, very important for the use of ethical generative AI as guardrails, as well as the ability to do model management and model determination. Then at the bottom, we have hardware, right? We have infrastructure. If there is a company or an organization out there that's really interested in creating a brand new foundation model, we have a lot of very specific hardware that we can provide in a virtualized manner to our customers to really enable that foundation model training. All right, so one of the key services that AWS provides to our customers for generative AI is Bedrock. So Bedrock was released last year, and it's the easiest way to build and scale Gen AI applications with LLMs and other FMs. So customers in every industry and every vertical are already using Bedrock to reinvent user experiences, products, and to bring AI into the heart of their business and their organization. So Bedrock provides a very broad choice of models, industry-leading foundation models from many different places, such as Anthropic, Meta, Stability AI, And we just announced last week, I believe it was, at Amazon reInvent, which is our annual user conference. AWS has also provided a brand new set of our own foundation models called Nova. They haven't shown up on these slides yet because it's just been announced, but Nova provides a lot of different models, large language models, multimodal models at a very competitive price point for inferencing, for asking questions of those models. But Bedrock is all about choice. So you can choose lots of different models to experiment with, and you can customize those using your organization's data. And you get that enterprise grade AWS security and privacy because we designed Bedrock that way from day one. So Bedrock gives you all of these purpose-built capabilities that you need to customize Gen AI applications with your own data. And with just a few clicks, you can go from generic applications that are specific and tailored to applications that use your data in these three ways that we mentioned, right? The easiest way to get started is with a corpus of documents that you may have using RAG. You can also explore fine-tuning and continued pre-training in Bedrock. So these are the ways that Bedrock will enable you to use your data to influence those foundation models to get you your best answers possible. Another area that I'm super excited about, again, because of the software development background in me, is agents for Amazon Bedrock. So agents is a very interesting way that you can take multi-step tasks and you can basically create a chatbot or some sort of generative AI application that will take action. So it's a way to break down and orchestrate tasks, maybe even execute API calls and securely access and retrieve that company data. And with agents for Amazon Bedrock, building an agent is very, very easy. All right, so that's Amazon Bedrock. So that, again, that's one of our key foundational elements that we provide to our customers from the AWS console. With just a click and a creative an account, you can get started with Amazon Bedrock to use your data. Another powerful tool that AWS has provided is a tool called Amazon Q. So Amazon Q is a powerful AI service that can benefit different users across your organization in multiple ways. We've got Amazon Q for business. It enables knowledge discovery, summarization, question answering, content creation, just a huge number of use cases there to help you make data-driven decisions for your business. Additionally, you can leverage Amazon Q in QuickSight. So QuickSight is our business intelligence dashboard tool, and you can combine the Amazon Q engine with the QuickSight dashboards to create really interesting executive summaries, for instance, based on visuals, and craft some compelling data stories. Amazon Q Developer is the one I mentioned when it came to the telco company. So Amazon Q Developer is a software development lifecycle tool that can assist in planning, coding, testing, code remediation, and ensuring your code is secure. It has advanced natural language capabilities, and Q Developer can really accelerate development cycles and improve code quality. It's integrated into multiple IDEs for code development. And then for more specialized use cases, we have Amazon Q for things like call center agents, which is Amazon Q and Connect, and supply chain. So Amazon Q, just to kind of give you a little background on the knowledge that's behind it. So Amazon Q has been trained on 17 years of AWS knowledge. It's been trained on AWS expertise. So it's ready to answer questions about application development on AWS with high quality information about our services and how to build our services. It can help you anywhere you work with AWS, such as the Management Console, IDEs, like I mentioned, Q Developer, and much more. So it assists you everywhere you work with AWS. And it's been trained on 17 years of knowledge about AWS development, as well as a large code base of our own code that we've that we've put in to help train that language model underneath the code. All right, so to kind of wrap up here a little bit, I want to just bring us back to, what does the future hold for generative AI in space? It can be difficult to predict what's coming out next. It's really moving fast. We see a lot of new announcements every week around Gen AI. But when it comes to solutions being developed by our space customers, we've seen a few key trends that are going to become more and more important in the near future. I've talked about a lot of these. We've got agents, which is the ability to orchestrate complicated tasks. We've got multimodal models, which understand both computer vision and language. There's going to be more of those coming out in the future, I'm sure, that understand things like video, spreadsheets, audio recordings, unstructured tests. We've got multiple models, right? So there's so many customers around the world and organizations around the world that are producing foundation models for a wide variety of use cases. And then finally, we've got AI policy and standards. We support at Amazon all of these efforts to put into place risk-based frameworks and guardrails for AI that protect civil rights while also allowing for continued innovation and practical application. We believe that responsibility drives trust drives adoption, and adoption drives innovation. We have commitment to safe, transparent, and responsible generative AI, including collaboration with the global community and policymakers to share best practices. And we've encouraged and supported both the White House voluntary AI commitments and the AI Safety Summit in the UK. And we encourage policymakers around the globe to collaborate with industry to support the safe, secure, and responsible development of AI technology. So if you want to get moving with generative AI, these are the 3 steps. I mean, you got to break it down, right? You've got to get down to 3 easy steps. So the first is select your correct use case. It's important to align that use case with your business and your technology teams to create the most feasible and easy to bite off use case to help get you started. AWS has workshops that can support this. Your AWS partners and account teams can support this to help you select that use case, as well as number 2 here, to empower your teams to innovate with the tools and the training. Generative AI is new, and it requires a level of experimentation and the ability to try things and fail fast. And then get started on your top use cases. Work toward a proof of concept with AWS experts who can help guide you through your Gen AI journey. And just some things to think about as you select, a use case and you try and experiment. Eyes wide open. It's a very early stage, so build a company culture, an organizational culture of continuous experimentation and flexibility, right? Try different models, try things out, see what works for you. There is no one size fits all solution. It's not a magic application of something. You have to try a lot of different things. But listen, right? Work backwards from what your customers or your internal users are telling you that they need to create value for their business. Listen to the domain experts, work backwards again from those key drivers, and enable your employees with the right set of tools. So I hope that this has given you some ideas for both the space industry and in general to help you get started with generative AI technologies. And I just want to thank you so much for your time and really appreciate it. And with that, we can go to questions.
Thank you so much, Joy. That was a very, very insightful presentation. We have a few questions, and if anyone else has questions that they would like to direct to Joy, please leave your questions in the Q&A box so that we can attend to them. So the first one that I want to direct to you is what generative AI training programs are available for in SAR data processing research for Earth systems?
Yes, that's an excellent question. I did want to share. So there is a lot of training programs available from AWS. One of them is called AWS Restart. So if you just look that up, AWS Re/Start, this is a program to help people with cloud careers, and getting started with generative AI is one thing, but also, getting started with AWS capabilities is another thing. So that Restart program is an invaluable tool that provides that kind of research, or I'm sorry, that provides that kind of training. AWS also provides a large wealth of free training on our aws.training website. So these are basically online deliverable sessions that you can learn about. And I've found them in my own career journey with AWS to be very, very useful. So if you look up, I think it's aws.training, I would encourage you to go there and get started. Yes, I'm checking that URL. Yes, aws.training. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yes, yes. So during your presentation, you mentioned that generative AI can be used for mission planning and operations. And some people may be too worried about if we can trust this yet. Like, is there anything you would like to say to that?
Yes, that's why I caveated that with, we are seeing things like this in the automotive world, right? And so all of these things have to have, I guess my caution about this would be that it all has to be evaluated at this point in time, right? And human in the loop analyzed. So we see that as a future use case. There is, that is not a use case that we are seeing at this current moment, but it is something that we are aware that customers are experimenting and trying and seeing what happens with this, and then comparing that to their knowledge, right, of what actually is the true things that need to be done in that field.
Okay. There's a question here for what categories of data do organizations need to build upon for the FM?
Yes, that's a great question. I see that in the question box. So categories of data where we see the most benefit that customers can immediately get impact from the data is with their internal corpus of knowledge, if you will. So I think back to my days at Ball Aerospace, and we had huge volumes of documents that were mostly resident in systems that were spread around, right? Lots of different places that these came from. So it was design documents for old tools that we had built, software manuals for things that we had built. Ball Aerospace also builds a lot of sensors themselves. They were instrumental in the James Webb Space Telescope, for instance. And so all of those design documents are immediately available for your organization. And if those documents can be gathered together and can be placed into an S3 bucket, basically you can take Bedrock and you can just point Bedrock to the documents in that S3 bucket to use as a knowledge base for RAG, for retrieval augmented generation. So that's one of the quickest and easiest ways that I can think of to get started as a category of data, is with, depending on what your mission is and what your organization's objective is, think about some of those, what we would call like the knowledge base. So
Yeah, so if people would like to get more insight into AWS's Gen AI programs, um, where can they get more information on this? Where do they go? What?
yes, we do have a homepage website. Let me pull that up really quickly, and I can paste that into the chat box here, and that would be the best place to start. We have a lot of different programs. as well that can actually, so we have many programs that can help our customers get started with things like AWS credits, with AWS training and capabilities there. So let me paste this into the chat box for everyone to see. Give me just a minute here. Okay, so that would be your best place, your best go-to to get started.
All right. Thank you so much, Joy, for the presentation. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.